Chapter 19. As we toured the second building with the real estate agent, I kept my eye on Maya. She had insisted she was feeling better and wanted to tag along. She did look better. Her cheeks had returned to their rosy color, and her eyes weren't bloodshot. But I'd never heard of a 3-hour flu before. "Are you sure you're feeling better?" I asked.
You ask me that every 5 minutes.
Maya said.
I'm fine. I feel a little tired, but otherwise I'm fine.
I gave a nod and watched as Frankie fluttered around the building.
This place has potential, but I was hoping for more living space. I don't want to have to commute to work, and having the extra income from rent really helped during slow months.
Then I think we should cross this building off the list and head to the next, I said. You have 3 more buildings to look at.
I think you're right.
He said, heading over to the agent.
Why waste my time?
The next 2 buildings we looked at weren't quite right either, and Frankie was becoming discouraged. As we headed to the 5th building, I prayed that it was closer to what he was expecting, or, if nothing else, would spark ideas for a new building. The agent pulled alongside a building not far from Frankie's, and we all gasped. It was Mark's fairy tale castle -1 turret. The for sale sign was in the ground, and a crew was removing the turret debris.
As you can see, there was a mishap with the turret, and it's scheduled to be fixed.
The agent said.
Ordinarily, I probably wouldn't show a building unless it was completely finished, but his price is marked low to sell quickly.
How low?
Frankie asked, his eyes never leaving the building. The agent shuffled through his papers and listed the asking price. When Frankie heard the price, his eyes widened.
He'll lose money. Why would he do that?
I heard he wants to sell so he can move out of state.
Frankie's eyes widened.
Move. Out of state?
He repeated and then turned toward me.
Did you know about this?
Yes, but I didn't think he was serious.
But why would he move?
Frankie asked as though he didn't know the answer. You don't know? I asked, placing the question back in his lap. Frankie ran his hand along the side of his face.
Damn.
Shall we?
The agent asked, oblivious to the revelation.
I'll buy it,
Frankie said, lost in his thoughts.
Excellent. Would you like to take a peek inside your building?
No, I've seen it. You can tell him to stop construction and save his money.
I'll make sure he knows. I'm sure he'll appreciate the savings.
The agent said. Frankie? I questioned after a few minutes of uncomfortable silence. Even Maya wasn't chattering, although after this morning, she hasn't chattered much at all.
It's a good location. I'll rebuild here.
What about Mark?
Mark will have his freedom. He can move wherever he wants.
Frankie.
Don't. Just don't.
2 days later, there was still no word about my attacker. Remy kept his distance, and so did David. Now that I think about it, so did everyone. I was trapped with a moody Frankie and a weepy, tired Maya. Her mood swings were nearly as pronounced as Frankie's. It didn't help that Maya's stomach was still troubling her. I had an idea why. Maya was sitting at a folding table when I dropped a bag in front of her. She glanced at it.
What is it?
Don't ask. Just do, I said. With a lost expression, she peeked inside the bag and then squeaked. Her eyes rounded.
Do you think?
Yes, I think. With shaky hands, she took the bag and headed to the bathroom. She returned later with an open mouth, her hands tightly clenching a pregnancy stick. Congratulations, I said, watching as her mouth stumbled for words.
I can't believe it.
You know that's what can happen when you have sex with your husband, right? I asked with a teasing voice. She tossed me an exasperated look before falling into a chair.
I just didn't expect it so soon.
You were trying? She nodded.
Well, we were thinking of trying, and so I stopped taking my pills. Oh my God, I didn't tell David I stopped. What is he going to say?
Nothing, I said. When her face fell, I added, He'll be too busy kissing you senseless to say anything. She rubbed her hand over her abdomen.
I can't believe it.
You should call him.
No,
She shook her head adamantly.
this doesn't change anything.
Are you sure? Because I think it might.
No, and you have to promise not to tell him.
I eyed the stubborn line of her jaw and gave a nod. I promise, but you have to tell him soon.
I will.
That was enough of a promise for me. I wasn't going to stick my nose in only to get it swatted.
What's going on?
Frankie mumbled as he stumbled out of the bedroom. His red-rimmed eyes targeted the dwindling stash of wine. Don't you dare, I said.
I was just going to have one.
Frankie, why don't you just call him? I pleaded. You're miserable and I know he is too. Frankie glared at me.
And how would you know that?
I was there when he left your apartment. With Gus. Oh crap, I forgot to check on Gus. I'll check on them both later today. I know he's just as miserable as you are, maybe more. Just talk to him and work this out.
If he wants to leave, then let him.
God, give me strength, I thought as I watched both Maya and Frankie wilt in their chairs. Hell, I'd even ask my dark spirits for strength just to get me through the day without strangling the two mopey, lovesick buffoons. I have an idea, I said, dragging their attention. Why don't we go ahead and perform at Celebrity MASH? They both mumbled despondently. Well, I asked. It will get us out of the apartment and we already know the steps.
We're one person short.
That's okay. You can just switch it up a little.
It was supposed to be a duet.
And now it's a solo. You'll be the star.
What if I throw up?
Maya asked, rubbing her stomach. That's what this is for, I said, handing her a second bag filled with prenatal vitamins, ginger chews, peppermint tea, and pregnancy lollipops.
Oh!
She exclaimed in happy surprise right before she hugged the bag and burst into tears.
Did I miss something?
Between sobs, she gasped.
I'm pregnant.
He popped out of his chair, springing over to hug her and falling victim to his own sobbing.
Congratulations.
He bawled. Fat crocodile tears streamed down each of their faces. I sat immobile, helplessly watching the display. After the last of the tears and hiccups subsided, I said, So how about that song? We could use a reason to get out and live a little. Frankie nodded.
I could use a break.
So could I.
Maya said, popping a lollipop into her mouth and rubbing her belly.
Just don't make me do the shimmy part.
No, we'll keep it simple.
Frankie said with a sympathetic smile.
I can't believe I'm going to be an uncle.
An odd smile brewed on his lips. You're thinking of matching sailor suits, aren't you? I asked.
How did you know?
His brows flew up as if he didn't know he was so completely obvious.
You're scary, you know that, right?
Frankie was taking us through the dance when Maya slapped her hands against her mouth.
Hang on!
Maya shrieked as she ran for the bathroom. Frankie stopped with his hands on his hips. Turning to me, he said,
I don't think this is going to work. She's getting worse.
I had to admit he was right. Maya threw up at the slightest provocation. Any time she ate, moved, smelled, or any variable in between sent her flying to the bathroom. She has a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Hopefully he can suggest something to help her stomach. Otherwise, I'm afraid she's just going to have to wait it out.
That doesn't help our performance tonight.
Let's keep going with the plan. She can back out at the last minute if she wants to. If nothing else, it will keep her mind focused on other things, I said.
At least with the new dance moves, we can be another person down and it won't matter. It may just be you and me on stage.
I won't mind. He smiled.
Neither will I.
We jumped when the door was pounded on so forcefully the walls shook. Frankie and I looked at each other and groaned, Muffin.
Should we let her in?
Let's pretend we're not here,
I heard that!
Muffin yelled.
Don't make me break the door again!
We both sighed. Frankie jogged to the door and opened it for her. She bulldozed in and dropped heavily into an inflatable chair. Frankie and I braced for an explosion. Thankfully, the chair held up. Why are you here? I asked.
Is that any way to treat the person who saved your life?
Muffin asked.
Do you have any snacks? I've been all over town and Bear is hungry.
I have a bag of veggie chips.
She grimaced. I wasn't too thrilled with the snack options either. Living with Mark, even the short time, had Frankie eating all sorts of healthy snack options he wouldn't have tolerated before.
Never mind,
She said, popping a lollipop into her mouth.
I'll just have this.
Muffin! That's one of Maya's pregnancy lollipops. She popped it out of her mouth to inspect it, then stuck it back in.
It ain't half bad. She's pregnant?
Yes, but it's a secret for now, I said.
No worries. I'll stay as silent as the grave. So, where am I sleeping?
Frankie and I exchanged worried glances. What happened to Pinata? I asked. She shrugged and slurped on the lollipop.
I don't know. We were staying at a motel until we could find a place. He stepped out yesterday and never came back. It's too bad. I thought he might be a keeper. Normally I don't like my husband's crowding my bedroom, but he gave it to me like a soldier going to battle.
Frankie and I winced. I had already heard him giving it to her like a soldier going to battle. I didn't want to envision it as well. I'm sorry he's gone, I said. But good for him, I added silently. Too bad he didn't receive battle pay. You'll have to find a different place to stay, though. We don't have room. As it is, we're sleeping like sardines. She popped the lollipop out and stared at me.
Are you saying you can't help out the person who saved your life?
It's not that, I said, suddenly finding my shoes very interesting. We just don't have the space or an extra bed. In case you forgot, it's only a one-bedroom apartment and there are already 3 of us.
4.
She corrected and stretched out her legs. Frankie stood behind her, shaking his head violently. But what were we to do? What Muffin wanted, Muffin got. Arguing was futile. And yet, I learn the hard way every time. Not this time. I took a step toward the door, feeling a growing need to distance myself. Frankie could sort it out. I'll let you figure out the sleeping arrangements, I said, opening the door. I have to run an errand.
Don't you dare leave.
I'll be back before dark, I promised before I slipped out and ran for it.